Brooke Fremo, certified trauma support specialist and adoptive mom to 11 children. I work primarily with adoptive families. And today we're going to be talking about why therapy isn't working. If you have an adopted child, you probably are already in the know about adoption trauma. And certainly if your child had any life experience that was leading to their placement in your home and in your family, then they've got extra trauma on top of their adoption trauma. And so oftentimes we take these kiddos that have these struggles and they get involved in either play therapy, group therapy, talk-based therapy, animal therapy like equine therapy, art therapy, therapy, therapy. And you're going, okay, I've got all of these services in place, and yet my child isn't getting better. What do we mean by that? Typically, we mean that the behaviors aren't going away. So in this video today, we're going to look at what is therapy really intended to do? Do you know? Yes, you end up with measurable goals at the start, and yet those goals oftentimes aren't peace in your household, right? That's not the goal. And so how do we get there, right? Let's talk about the pros and the cons of therapy and if it is the best option for your family. So if you are an adoptive family and you would like more information on tips and tricks for raising your adoptive children, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Also, hop into the comments and let me know what it is that you would like me to do a video on for you and your family going forward. If you have any questions at any point, that would be a great place to put them as well. And certainly, we've got links for you in the description. We'll talk about those more later, but let's get to it. Therapy has short-term measurable goals. And so if you've sat with your therapist, you know that what they do is say, okay, that my child's going to be able to identify their feelings better on a 70% scale. 70% of the time, they'll be able to accurately identify what they're feeling. And perhaps in lieu of a tantrum, 50% of the time, they'll be able to verbalize their emotion versus a tantrum. Those are the types of goals that you may see when you're working in therapy, right? And yet you go home and your child's being equipped with all sorts of tools. They're learning breathing strategies. Maybe they're learning how to process things through body-brain integration, which would be sensory input, right? All powerful, awesome things. But then your child's got big feelings, and those big feelings override everything that they've ever done in therapy. Is that you? Can you relate to that? Because I know that I can. I've had many children that have been a part of therapy, and I was frustrated. I got to tell you, one of the lowest points for me was a point at which we had a tween that had come into our family and had come from some really, really hard things. And she was working with a therapist, and the therapist was a doll. She came to our house, and one day after therapy, she pulled me aside and she said, you know, Brooke, what you and Jason are doing, I mean, you're doing it right. You're showing up so patient and so kind and giving her space and trying to help her process. And I want you guys to know to just keep doing what you're doing. Have you heard that from a therapist before? Have you heard that from other adoptive families that are like, you're showing up, good on you, right? And the intent is for that to be a source of encouragement, but the reality is for me, that was a dagger to the heart. Because what I heard was, what you guys are doing is as good as it's going to get. Eventually, it's going to click. But until then, this is your life. This constant level of distress and chaos and battle for control that this child had, this is not something I wanted to live with and wake up to every single day. I didn't know that that was healthy or safe for the other kids that were in the home and substantially younger than her. And so that intention for encouragement was definitely not received that way. I thought, how in the world am I going to be able to do this? Which is honestly how I got pushed into the world of trauma-informed care and figured out the systems and strategies that we use in Journey University. That's a side note. Today, what we want to talk about is, why doesn't therapy work? Guys, therapy works in the long term. Therapy is designed to give whoever the patient is some insights, some awarenesses, something called reframing, where they can look at a situation and see it differently than they see it through their own perspective or their own lens. It's to help them develop an emotional IQ so that they can understand both what they're feeling and what others are feeling, how their behaviors impact others. That's a lot. That's a lot to learn. Adults in therapy can take years to make their progress. Can you imagine if we were to strip off all of the maturity, life experience, right? Impulse control, delayed gratification, right? If we put all the things that we have as an adult, we took them off, that would make us like a child. Can you imagine how much harder and how much longer it would take for therapy to really take root? And so we wonder, like, why is therapy not working? In the long haul, I'm sure that it is, and that it's got some great benefit to it, but it certainly isn't going to take the dynamics in your home and diffuse them the way that you're hoping, right? And so what does work? Well, the reality is that the whole household has to be set up for you to be able to require them to learn to surrender that desire for control. And we do that through a couple different ways. We do that through withholding the control that they fight so hard for when they're fighting for it, giving it to them when they're not fighting for it, surrendering some of our authority when they're doing things in appropriate ways, and positively incentivizing them when they are losing control to do something healthy and productive with that, to remove themselves from the relationship conflict, from that source of the bad feelings that they're having, until they're ready to face them in a healthier, more boundaried way. And so it's a multi-part system that we use to be able to get kiddos to have a sense of delayed gratification, to be able to take their feelings to a safer location, to be able to process those feelings, right? Because kids don't have intrinsic motivation, right? That's something that develops over a course of time. They use extrinsic, outside influences in order to mold their morality and their behavior. And certainly kids that are traumatized tend to be more immature in that realm, right? And so if you are discouraged that therapy doesn't seem to be working, I would say don't quit on that. Therapy is a good thing. It's just not going to get you the results quickly that you're looking for in your home. And that's where Journey University comes in, right? That's tools and systems that the entire family unit implements together in order to be able to diffuse what's going on in the household. I hope that this answered some of your questions today about therapy. And again, feel free to hit me up in the comments section, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.